Good evening, everyone. I thought I would just pop on here and kind of give an update and a few prophecies that I had a couple years ago again. Some more stuff that the Lord has showed me now that things are starting to develop, and it's just getting crazier and crazier as the days go by, the stuff that's happening. Um, while the solar eclipse was going on, meanwhile, while everybody was looking up at the solar eclipse and people was out there mocking, about the solar eclipse and, of how big, which I know that there was a lot of stuff that, a lot of Christians was talking about the solar eclipse, and there was a lot of videos out there, and some of them was a bunch of nonsense, pretty much. But I've seen Christians on their Christian channels mocking about the solar eclipse and how nothing happened, and I was just sitting there thinking, they don't need to group everything into everything, because they're not even looking at the full picture. I mean, nobody that has heard from God's ever said that anything was going to happen on that day, that it was just a warning from God. uh, but I was shocked to see, some of the ministers standing up and mocking, about the solar eclipse and everything and making fun of it. So, but all you can do is pray for God to give them uh, His spirit of discernment on what He's trying to say in these days. I mean, nobody said anything was going to happen that day, except for, probably with the conspiracy theories and the nonsense that's out in the world. It was a warning. And we've known for years and years and years, ever since, for the last 7 years, we've known that this was going to be a warning. And there's been a lot of people that's been warning about it, of what God's really saying about it. And it does directly tie in with Israel. And meanwhile, on Monday, while the eclipse was going on, the United Security Council in New York refers Palestine's application to become full UN member to the committee. So they've got it on the table and fixing to allow them to become a full member to the United Nations. And so, and Palestine don't even have a state yet. So I don't know. I'm just like, this kind of flabbergasted me, because they're not even a state. They don't even have a state, but yet the UN is gonna wanting to accept them with full membership in New York, where we just had the earthquake recently. So, but anyway, this happened the same day as the eclipse, and if you look over here on the news since the eclipse, you are seeing all kinds of people from different countries. You got Australia, France, Egypt, Jordan. Of course, our Senator Chuck Schumer, or whatever his name is, he's been pushing it, and a lot of them in our government's been pushing a two-state solution, and Biden. Saudi Arabia. I mean, this has all just been recently. Some of these, like, right, just since the eclipse came over, they're all pushing the whole world's starting to put pressure on Israel for a two-state solution. And, I mean, who knows? I mean, the way the world is acting, they act like they have a right to control what other countries do. So, I mean, they could force it on Israel too, and Israel not even have a say so about it. So, I mean, who knows how this was going to turn out. But there's a lot of stuff going on since that eclipse. And we know what God warned about it on as far as America is concerned, and what he warned for Paris too, and for France. So we got all of that going on the last couple of days ever since the eclipse. And then on top of that, President Trump went on a radio show to talk about Israel's war. And this might upset some people. And some people probably just won't even believe it because they're so wrapped up in conspiracy stuff. But he was on, what was the guy's name? Hang on just a second. Hugh Hyatt radio show. And this is the transcript, which I've got the video or the audio too pulled up where you can actually hear what he said. But he was pretty much criticizing how Israel is handling the war over there too, you know. So he never would really say, actually really confirm if he's 100% stands with Israel anymore. So he pretty much kind of skirted around answering that question through this transcript. But anyway, I'm gonna play a little clip off of here on the audio so you can hear for yourself what he kind of said right here at the. I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but just a little bit.
Hugh Hewitt, joined by our very special guest, former President Donald Trump. Mr. President, welcome back. Always great to have you on the show.
Well, thank you very much.
I want to begin with Israel, Mr. President, because Sunday marks 6 months since October 7th. And you gave an interview recently to Israel Hayom, which was characterized by many on the left as being critical of Israel. Then Jonathan Tobin writes this morning, wait a minute, that's not right. Trump was the friendliest president ever for Israel. Have you been mischaracterized in your advice to Israel?
Well, you know, with the fake news, you never know what you're going to get. You can say something very plainly, and they'll turn it around. They'll turn around everything. That's why they're fake. And that's why they've been discovered. That's why they've been found to be so, you know, if you look at approval ratings, they're lower than Congress now, the news. They used to be in the 90s when I started, and now they're lower than Congress. So I'm very proud of that fact. They're bad news. Look, Israel should have never happened. If I were president, it would not have happened. Iran was broke. They had no money. They had no nothing. And we would have worked to deal with Iran. It would have been made already. In the meantime, they can have a nuclear weapon within probably 45 or 60 days. And then it's going to be a little tougher to talk to them. But October 7th would have never happened. They never, ever would have been attacked. But it is what it is. And this horrible thing happened. And what I said very plainly is get it over with and let's get back to peace and stop killing people. And that's a very simple statement. Get it over with. They got to finish what they finished. They have to get it done. Get it over with and get it over with fast because you have to get back to normalcy and peace. The whole world is blowing up with this idiot president we have.
I'm gonna go ahead and get off of here because he kind of goes on rant a little bit there, but and I don't really play into politics. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm getting where I just absolutely do not like election years. But we'll turn it around here and hang on just a second of what he said. If I can find it, hang on just a second. Let me use my little arrow because that thing goes too fast on the finger thing. But hang on just a second because I was reading it earlier, and I'll get past what I was saying past that rant on Biden, which, you know, I mean, we all have our opinions about. I think they all need to get saved. My own personal opinion. They all need more of Jesus. But it was almost like he was kind of on the fence a little bit because the war is like taking so long. And And he said, but are you still standing 100% with Israel? It says, you achieved the Abraham Accords, which was the first peace deal since Sadat. And he said, right, talking about the Abraham Accords. And it says, and so are you still 100% with Israel? And what's your advice to the prime minister beyond get over it and or get it over it with in a hurry? And he said, well, that's all the advice you can give. I mean, that's the advice. You've got to get it over with and you have to get back to normalcy. It says, I'm not sure that I'm loving the way they are doing it because you've got to have victory. You have to have victory, and it's taking a long time. And the other thing is, I hate they put out tapes all the time, every night. They're releasing tapes of buildings falling down. They shouldn't be releasing tapes like that. That's why they're losing the PR war. And it says Israel's absolutely losing the PR war. So he kind of skirted around that, standing behind Israel he never did like answer that question. And this guy asked him twice. He never did fully answer it. But he goes on talking about that and, criticizing kind of how they're handling stuff. And but of course it's an election year. So, I mean, we're going to see some crazy stuff because it's an election year and some of the stuff that's going to be said. But a lot of people, they were kind of in shock that he started talking about Israel, even in the least bit negative way, because he was such a supporter of Israel on the last term that he served. So it's kind of threw everybody kind of for a little loop type, thing going on. So, but anyway, so if you're on the calendar, we've got the IDF withdraws most troops from Gaza on the solar eclipse, and then the UN considered Palestine full membership on the day of the solar eclipse. And that was in New York, which was right after, 3 days after the earthquake in New York and New Jersey. Trump's radio show interview criticizing Israel's war was on that Thursday before the earthquake hit. And also another thing too, you had Biden threaten Israel about Gaza, about saying that if they didn't have a ceasefire and if they went into Rafah, that America would change their stance or how they deal with Israel, and was threatening them. And then Trump's radio interview where he was criticizing the Israeli war. Right after that, the very next morning, there was a 1.6 earthquake right on top of in New Madrid, Missouri, on top of the New Madrid fault line. I mean, that's why they named that town in Missouri New Madrid. It's because it's sitting right on top of the New Madrid fault line. And it happened at 4:18 a.m. the next morning. So, we're seeing some crazy stuff happening, and all this stuff is all happening before Passover and before Israel's what they call high holy days, which is coming up the end of this month. Their spring holiday, biblical holidays. But anyway, let's get into what I seen. I had a dream about Trump being on stage, and it was back in, it was back in July in 2016. And we didn't see this at that time, but we could possibly see this during this election here. because we didn't really see this happen during the last election, but it looks like it could possibly happen in this. And there's part of this dream that I didn't tell anybody. And I literally, the part that I didn't put in there is because there were so many people that was pro-Trump, and I just kind of kept it to myself. But I'm going to have to put it out there because I have to put out what God says. And there's going to be a lot of people that's not going to really like the rest of this dream, the part that I seen in the dream. But in July 2016, I had a dream about Islam in America, to where there was just huge crowds of Muslims. And it says, in the dream, I seen one of the candidates of the election, Donald Trump, was on stage, and he was on an actual stage, and a huge crowd of Muslims shouting, "Take America back," and then shouting two words, something in Arabic that started with the letter A. And it was that word, I can't remember right off right now, but it's that word that they always shout out. It's like two words that they shout out together. And during this dream, while Trump was on stage and while these Muslims was shouting, "Take America back," which is a lot of what a lot of people say is "Take America back," that are Donald Trump supporters. But this right here was actually a huge crowd of Muslims that was shouting it. And then they started shouting in Arabic, that those two words that they shout out all the time that starts with an A. But what I seen on there was Trump was having, how can I explain this? It was almost like he had sympathy and was starting to side with the Muslims, which is why it's kind of concerning to me, of how he spoke on that radio show, because it like brought this dream like right back in forefront into my mind, because of he didn't say anything on stage, but it's like in the dream I felt that. It was like I felt that he was having sympathy, starting to have sympathy for the Muslims, and he was starting to side with the Muslims. And and I didn't put it on here because it was like the feeling that I was having in the dream. It wasn't anything that he said or anything like that, but he was on a big stage, like a campaign stage. So, and we have a lot, with all of the Palestine protest and everything else that's going on right now in the world, and in America, that we're already seeing this with Donald Trump's comments that he's already making with Israel, and then all the protesting and everything with the Palestinians and everything, and we've got tons of them that's here in the United States, probably a bunch of them that's here illegally, from the Middle East. They're coming in from the Middle East. They're not like the American born and raised Muslims that was raised here. It's not the same kind of Muslims. There's different sects of, the different Muslim beliefs out there in the Middle East. You got the Shiites and what's the other one that fight against each other all the time over there in the Middle East? I can't remember the other one, but it's almost like they've got their different denominations of Muslim. Like the churches have, like here in the United States, they have different denominations in Christianity. It's the same way with Muslims. They have different denominations too. So, different, you might say. Except for there's the way they believe is like quite the opposite of the way Christians believe. So, Um, but anyway, but that's what I was saying. That's about the only thing that he ever really showed me about Trump. And it was during the last election that Trump ran, that he won back in 2016. But this didn't happen back then. And here he is, he's running again. So we may, and we're already seeing some of this happen because we're seeing huge crowds of Muslims, Palestine Muslims, and I mean we're pretty much seeing it already. It could play out exactly like this, or it could just be like symbolic of the huge crowds of Muslims that's wanting, you know, a Palestine state. So, so anyway, which I never really agreed with to the Abraham Accords anyway, because it was giving up land for a Palestine state. They just didn't call it a two-state solution, really too much. Um, so anyway, we'll go down to that, and I think that's all I'm going to reveal for tonight. Is just that one thing right there, and leave that be. I may put in some more of these prophecies that he gave me back then. But like I said, I had to ask God to forgive me though for not putting, even though I just felt it in the dream. It was like a knowing in the dream. I should have wrote it down in there. And I had to ask God to forgive me for that right there, because I should have included it in there whenever I did post that back in 2016. But anyway, I'm going to get off of here, and I hope y'all have a good evening, and I'll be talking to y'all soon. And we just stay in prayer and stay close to Jesus, and, take all of these things to God. Don't never take anybody's word for it, not even mine. Just go straight to God and ask God about it. Everything, any prophecy you hear from anybody, always take it to God and pray to Him so that He'll reveal to you what you need to know. And, but anyway, I was going to go one more thing with the Bible verse that I had pulled up. I almost forgot. I'm going to end it with this Bible verse. 1 Thessalonians 5, starting with verse 1. But of the times and of the seasons, brethren, you have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, otherwise a woman in birth, labor pains. And it says, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. And let me break this down a little bit. They've been saying peace and safety for how long now? I mean, they've been calling for this two-state solution for quite a few years, especially since that first eclipse. And this Bible tells us that it would be as the travail upon a woman with child, otherwise during labor. And anybody that has been in labor or been around a woman that's in labor, it starts out really mild. And then it gets more and more and more intense until it's time for the birth. So they've been saying peace and safety, but it's getting more and more. It's getting more and more closer to that birth, and then sudden destruction is going to come upon them, and they shall not escape. But ye, brethren, are not in darkness, that day should overtake you as a thief. It says, "Ye are all the children of light and the children of the day. We are not of the night nor of darkness. Therefore, let us not sleep as others do, but let us watch and be sober. For they that sleep in the night and they that be drunken are drunken in the night. But let us who are of the day be sober, putting on the breastplate of faith and love, and a helmet and hope of salvation. For God has not appointed us to wrath, but to obtain salvation by our Lord Jesus Christ." And I wish I would have pulled the prophecy that I had about the basically the breastplate of faith. He gave me a dream about, and it was a beautiful dream. All y'all out there that's close to the Lord and stuff, you will love that dream because it's just an awesome dream, an awesome promise. It's an awesome promise, and I need to do a video on some of the promises that he showed me too. So I mean, they're awesome. I mean, he showed me some really good things. He showed me heaven before. Um, he showed me, different things about him giving his angels charge over us, and there's a lot of good things too that he has showed us and showed me, and stuff that promises that it's our hope, it's our our blessed hope that we have of where we're headed, you know. So I'm gonna have to do a video on that, on some of that stuff that he showed me, because it's like it's really good stuff to the body of Christ, to the remnant. So, but anyway, I'm going to get off of here tonight, and I hope you'll have a very blessed night, and everybody sleep well, and just be at peace, because we know how all this is going to turn out in the end. Even though God is sending warning after warning upon the nations, the different nations, it's we know what our promise is. We know what our blessed hope is. So, but anyway, y'all have a good evening, and I love all of y'all, and I will be praying for y'all, and y'all keep me in y'all's prayers as well. And if anybody has a prayer request, you can always post it in the comments so we can all pray together, for each other. Because the Bible says when two or more are joined together in his name, he's in the midst of us. So, but anyway, if anybody has any prayer requests, they can just feel free to put it in the comments, and we will all pray for each other like the Bible tells us to do. But anyway, I love all of y'all, and I will see y'all later.